Did they believe that? Well, I imagine to some extent they did. Even the deists probably believed that the structure that this ultimate power that created the universe had, that part of that structure were the rights that we enjoy. In that sense, they're God-given. But what does that mean in a contemporary secular culture where we have plenty of people who don't believe that there's God? Well, so a couple of things. The basis of what we might call a moral argument would say that in order for there to be rights, inalienable rights, rights that cannot be taken away from us, that are part of the fabric of what we are, in order for that to make any sense, there has to be some sort of higher power that endows us with those rights. But notice that it's not incumbent on the people to believe in that creator. There is no obligation for you or anybody else to believe that God exists in order to have those rights. It's not like God's up there saying, well, I'm only going to give you these rights if you believe in me. If you don't believe in me, I'm going to take those rights away. That's not how it works. The rights, especially as the deist conceived of them, were just, it was a natural law. It's as natural as gravity, right? In that sense, yeah, I think secularism and even the framing fathers' ideas about these things are, fit fine together.
And then the issue he also gets the inalienable rights are God-given. Is like, well, the Bill of Rights, is the 27th Amendment, which talks about compensation for Congress. Is that a God? Is God really involved in that?
Really
seems a little mundane.
What I think is interesting about the document itself, the Constitution, is that it is the actual written Constitution is almost a-religious. It doesn't have, your religion is not discussed in it, except when you get to the First Amendment to the Constitution. And it's interesting because you're in a culture where the basic references for everybody at that period of time are Christian references and the Bible and all that. And it almost strikes me, again, we weren't in those rooms, and most of those negotiations were done in secret to where we don't even find out what they were talking about in those rooms when they were putting the Constitution together. But to me, there almost had to have been a conscious choice at some point in time to not bring up God in the Constitution, because if you look, there's no God, there's no religion. It doesn't say those words anywhere in there. Is that you're going back to the Declaration of Independence, which is where that is, right. and that's the basis to to bring in these ideas. But I just think it's very interesting as a historical document that at a time when everybody's frame of reference would have been the classics and the biblical scriptures, and talking about bringing in scriptures on a regular basis to enlighten what you're trying to say and to help people understand what you're trying to say. And the fact that they're just not in there, I'm not saying that makes it a non-religious, I say a-religious.
It's a reflection of the Enlightenment.
Yeah.
Concept
I think that's right.
I think they saw this far more in practical terms than
right.
philosophical terms. And if everybody has that point of reference, who are you trying to prove something to?
Exactly. So.
But I think there is a philosophical underpinning, right? If we're trying to create a document for everybody, regardless of what they believe, then that approach makes more sense, right? Yeah. I will point out this, because some of you were in the earlier thing. I know we got a couple of people waiting for questions too.
Yes,
so. But in the thing with the representative Zettler, and he tried to make some sort of connection between the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence in the very last phrase where it says that this was enacted in the year of our Lord, blah, blah, blah. And then it delineated a year from the declared independence, right, at the end. 12th year, right, after the independence was declared. And he said, well, there it is, right? It refers back to the Declaration of Independence, and in so doing, it refers to God and all of the stuff that the Declaration said. I think that connection is tenuous at best. But I do think what it does tell you is that the Framing Fathers did intend that these documents be taken hand in hand, and that the one follows from the other. I don't know that they were intentionally saying, hey, look, here's God as a footnote to our Constitution. That seems a little bit trivial. But there does seem to be a strong connection between both documents.